Hello and welcome back to DocTrack Training. Let's continue our review of DocTrack Flex. On our last lesson, we logged in as Paul Adams and took a short tour of some of the many features available to him in DocTrack Flex. But we finished our lesson with a few questions. First, we saw some strange icons on some of the attachments. We did learn that the paperclip indicates a record attachment, meaning that the file is attached to the selected record. But notice this one isn't a record attachment. It has an icon that looks like an infinity symbol. That tells us that this is a window attachment, which means this file is going to be attached to every record in this form. So no matter which item I select, I'll see an attachment to the same item revision worksheet. Next, let's look at this one. It has a paperclip, which tells us that it's a record attachment. But there's another icon here beside it. This tells us that it's a virtual attachment. That means that someone has set up DocTrack to search for files that meet certain criteria based on this record. Each file it finds will be attached here dynamically as a virtual attachment. Let's now go back to job orders and look at job 60-0, which is a job to make the same item FA 10,000. This job has a job packet report attached, as well as a QC worksheet. Both are standard direct attachments to this job. But down here, we see 3 of the same attachments we saw on the FA 10,000 item record. Instead of a paperclip, though, these attachments have a chain icon. That tells us that these are indirect attachments. DocTrack has established associations between certain key records to other records that reference them. So if you have a direct attachment on an item record, it will appear as an indirect attachment on forms like job orders, purchase order lines, customer order lines, and so on. If you're interested, you can go back to this lesson page and download a table that lists all these associations we've set up in DocTrack. Now, if you happen to forget what these file type icons mean, just select this filter button. Here you'll find the description for each icon. You'll also be able to filter by type. Just select or deselect them to see only types you're interested in. That could be pretty handy, especially if the record has a lot of attachments. You can also filter by description or file name. And even change your sort order. When you change your filter settings, that filter status will remain for that form as long as it's open. However, it does not affect the filter status for the other forms. And when you close the form and reopen it, you reset your filter and sort settings back to the default. Next, let's look at the location icons. We already learned that this symbol means that the attachment is located on your network's file system. But what about this one that looks like a file folder? Well, as you might guess, this is not a link to a file, but a folder. When I select it, nothing will display in the previewer. But if I double-click it, that folder will open up in Windows File Explorer. Now I have direct access to the entire folder of documents related to this job. Okay, what about this one that looks like a globe? Well, notice that instead of being linked to a file, this is linked to a website. So when you open it, the website pops up automatically in your default browser. You'll learn later that DocTrack can also work with files in SharePoint. Because that's a web-based application, you'll see this globe icon for those attachments too. In addition to the file system and web icons, you may also see this one indicating that the file is a cloud account like Dropbox Business or Amazon's S3 web service, and this one telling you that the file is in a document management system application called Laserfiche. For most of the rest of this course, we'll be working with documents in your company's file system. Later on, you'll find other learning sections on using SharePoint, cloud accounts, and Laserfiche with DocTrack. Now, for many people, all they really need in DocTrack Flex is the ability to quickly find and open files attached to records in Sightline. If you fall into this category, then this is basically how DocTrack Flex will look to you. But that doesn't necessarily mean you can't make your own attachments. And on our next lesson, we'll show you how to do that by generating reports through DocTrack. See you then.